And we're going to be talking to you about the business licenses that we offer here in Harford County. The business licenses, there was a Senate bill that came out that was effective October 1st with some pretty significant law changes to those business licenses. And I think some of the biggest changes that we've had in the last 40 to 50 years in business license. In conjunction with that, and shortly afterwards, the comptroller came out with a tax alert to help the overall counties to kind of decipher through some of those law changes. There were some questions, and they went through and clarified some of those effective changes for us. One thing that we are super excited about this year is that we have the ability, which we'll go into a little bit later into the slideshow, but our businesses here in Harford County are able to create, renew, and also now pay for their business license online. And this is our first renewal season that we are able to offer the pay online, and we're hoping that this really takes off with the business owners. It would be extremely it would take less time for them. It would be a much quicker process for them. And so you can see that there's a link below the business licenses, and that is just one of the links that our business owners are able to go into. And this particular one is the one where they can actually renew and pay online. When we are the business license aspect of what we do, we work with many of our community partners, not only here in Harford County, but also on the state level. We have our business owners that have their businesses in each of the towns or the cities. We are responsible with coordinating with them and then with us to confirm that the business owners have clearance for their business license during renewals. We also work with the Harford County Treasurer, also with the State Department of Assessment and Taxation. The business owners are responsible for filing personal property with them, and that determines if they have filed on time, that it determines whether their business is in good standing or not in good standing. So we work closely with the business owner and also with the State Department to help them get them into a good standing status. And we also work with the State License Bureau and the Comptroller. The State License Bureau and Comptroller may have certain holds on the account, which also pertains to having, it can be a whole host of reasons. If it's a trader's license, which means that they sell goods and business owner sells goods, then the business owner may not have filed their tax information. Or they may not have gotten their tax account, which would put a hold on that account. And so we are constantly working with our partners along with the business owners so that we can have the customer obtain their business license as quickly as possible. The next slide here is sort of a yearly synopsis. I came to the clerk's office in 2015, so that's the year that I started with. And this is a yearly synopsis of our business licenses and what we've had pending as compared to what we have issued. As you can see, unfortunately, there is a downward trend. And so that's something that we're hoping as we move away from COVID, and that business owners are feeling a little bit more confident that we can increase those numbers here in our county. We also, in conjunction with those numbers trending down over the years, we have really we have done quite a bit of cleanup of our systems and just made sure that we have our database as accurate as possible when it comes to the businesses that are active within the community. Business licenses online. So this is the business owners have the ability to walk into our office at 7 West Cortland to be able to apply for a business license in person. And they also have the ability to apply for a business license online. The first link that I have here is when that business owner or potential business owner woke up this morning and said, I'm going to start a business today. And they don't have something that is already established. They may have in mind their business name, but they may not have that already established. So that first link there, the egov.maryland.gov/business express, is so that they can start the process of their business from really ground zero. They have thought of their name and they are applying for their name through this link with SDAT. SDAT does take some time to go ahead and get that established number back to them, whether they are a sole proprietor or they are a LLC or an incorporated business. SDAT will eventually return the L number, W number, D number that starts, that gives them their business identifier. Once that identifier has been established, they can continue within that link in finishing up their business license application, which will ultimately, the final step of that will end up in our queue, in our database queue. The next link is a resource for all business owners, in that when they are creating their business, if they have any questions as to how to complete the process online, this is an extremely useful guide that will take them step by step on really even how to answer questions and give guidance. For example, if I am a brand new business, I can absolutely log on to the website and start the creation and through SDAT. If I have already established my SDAT number, and also maybe that I've been in business for several years, but I've decided to transfer, I've decided to get out of business and I'm selling to another party, this guide will also indicate to you that that is something that they would need to come into our office for. We are unable to do transfers online. However, if you are anything new or any renewals, we can go through the online process. And finally, that last link is the link where if you are a citizen within Harford County and you are interested in finding out if a business owner has a business license, you can go to this portal and you can search to see, maybe I'm going to be doing business with a construction company and I want to see if they have a recent and current business license. I can go in and I can do a search for that. It does not require me to, when I do a search, to have an established account. I can just go to this link and search. Also, at the same time, I can go in and as long as I have my SDAT number, I can also create my business license application right here from this portal. Once the license is created and the business owner is satisfied and they have completed the process, that application will come into our queue here at the clerk's office. And we'll start going through that application with our business partners on the local and state level to confirm that all avenues have been checked and that we're good to go ahead and approve the business license. Once we have approved that business license in the system, the business owner will receive an email from us indicating that they are able to pay online. And so I am going to go to actually the next slide, and we'll talk about the online portion of it in a little bit down the road here in the presentation. So this is an example of the changes that occurred on October 1st from the Department of Legislative Services. And basically here, I just want to talk to you about that. Our business license do run from May 1st through April 30th of each year. When we are sending out renewals, they typically go out by April 1st of every year. And we do give a grace period. As long as the business owners renew their business license by May 31st, they are able to make payment on the face value of the business license. Anything after May 31st, beginning on June 1st, and going through the process, their penalties are added if the business license is not renewed by the end of May. And as we go through, I will talk about each of the business licenses that were affected by this Senate bill. Next is at the beginning of the presentation, I made mention to the fact that the comptroller came out with a tax alert that explained the impact to us and to the community of the Senate bill changes, Senate Bill 496 business license regulation changes. That it has been instrumental in having us here at the clerk level understand what it is that we need to do in order to send out the renewals this coming actually in a couple of weeks here. And we've been preparing since January and have really been cleaning up our system and also trying to make sure that we have the best application go out as possible. The business owners will really want it this year to take a look at their business licenses that they receive and certainly notify us of any updates that need to be made with that license. We have, again, tried to do our due diligence on some of the changes, but ultimately it is up to the business owner to communicate with us if we need to update. And so as I've already discussed, our renewals are mailed out by April 1st. And this year we have that option of business licenses online and payments being accepted. And so we do have a third-party partner that works with us so that any credit card or e-check transactions, they are the most secure transactions that we can provide. There is a credit card surcharge of a flat fee of $1 plus 2% and e-check surcharge of a flat fee of $1.36. We will still mail out the renewals in the paper format. And so of course we can accept them back by mail, and those all come into the main courthouse here at 20 West Portland. We also have a satellite office, and that is our licensing office, and that we can accept walk-ins for renewals at 7 West Portland. As I also had talked about, the initial cost of the license is accepted through May 31st, and if the business owner has not renewed by that time, then there will be a penalty. The penalties beginning June 1st are 10%. And then it is 2% each month thereafter. These these are all the business licenses that we offer here at the clerk's office. And the ones that are circled are the main business licenses that were affected by the Senate bill. Also in that Senate bill, they have taken away a few of the business licenses that just have dwindled throughout the years. And so some of them are no longer required, but these are all of our active business licenses currently at this time. One of the main changes came to our restaurant businesses. Prior to the law change, the restaurant owners were required to obtain a restaurant license, a trader's license, and quite possibly, if they were a chain restaurant, a chain store license. And that is one of the changes that we have, that right now, as long as a restaurant falls under the definition of that they accommodate the public, that they provide seating, and that they are equipped with facilities preparing and serving food, then as of the law change, they are only required to obtain a restaurant license. They are no longer required to obtain the traders, and they are no longer required to obtain a chain store if that was applicable to them prior, or would still be applicable, but no longer necessary. The definition is going to be extremely important in how we are going to issue those, the restaurant owners. Certainly there are some anomalies, and one of those anomalies maybe being Cracker Barrel. So Cracker Barrel has the restaurant, and they also have their store portion. So we're going to really rely on that business owner to talk to us about what it is that they need. If they, because they are a chain store, if they may not need a chain store for the restaurant portion, but if they're going to obtain a traders because they sell goods, then quite possibly then they're going to need a chain store as well, but just for the sale of the goods portion of their business. Chain stores. Again, the definition is super important to the chain stores and whether a business owner is going to need a chain store business license from us or not. And the definition is that it is 2 or more retail stores operated under a common or shared management, supervision, or ownership, regardless of the form, purpose, or structure. And so, as we've already talked about, the restaurants are not required to obtain a restaurant license because they fall under the definition of a restaurant. In addition, the legislators have also added in gas stations, that any retail service station that primarily sells fuel, they also will not be required to obtain a chain store, even if it appears otherwise that they should. And so our partners that are gas station owners are able to get a break on the license, of course. The non-resident construction business. We have a resident construction and we have a non-resident construction. So the biggest change with the non-resident is that in the past, they have been required to obtain a business license in each county that they do business in throughout that business license year, which is the May 1st through April 30th. As long as their contract was over $1,000. And so the law change has made it a little bit easier for that non-resident business to only obtain a license in the first county. where they have their first job. And that is through, it is not it's not a calendar year, it is our business license year. So if I have a non-resident construction business who is working in Harford County right now, and they have an 8-month job, they are going to be renewing with us in May, when we're doing our renewals, April and May. If it is a non-resident business and they are not currently working on a job site right now, but they are going to have their first job in Baltimore County that starts in July, that's where they will obtain their license. Once they have their non-resident construction license, it is good for the entire state for the entire business license period, which means that they may start out here in Harford County, but then, you know, in December, they may have a job in Baltimore City. Their Harford County license is going to carry them through that job in the latter part of the year. The other change that the legislators went ahead and put in place was that the non-resident construction fees were higher than the resident construction. And those are now consistent with each other. They no longer have a different fee. However, the laws do still keep in place. So our construction business licenses are for all non-residential. So they apply to new construction and also commercial construction. And so what we don't want business owners to get confused in, regardless of the law change, is that everything does remain the same, that if they're working residential, they will still need to obtain their MHIC, and that is not a business license that we offer here at the courthouse.
Right, because we don't do anything with home improvement.
Correct. We do not do home improvement.
Okay.
Right. And if I am an out-of-state business, I am only required to obtain that non-resident license. There is not another license that they are required to obtain.
Okay.
There were some changes as well to the storage warehouse. And this was one thing that the tax alert really did clarify for us. There was confusion as to the definition of a storage warehouse. And so the main thing that we wanted to point out is that if there's a self-storage, which I know we have quite a few here in Harford County, they must obtain a storage warehouse license. And that is because somebody has the ability, our citizens have the ability to go to that location and store their goods for a fee. And so there's not too much more that I need to
So that's a pretty simple one.
Yeah, that's one of our easier ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then the trader's license. So I would say that this is probably one of our business licenses that we issue the most. And that the trader's license, by definition, is a person who does business as a trader or exhibitor of the sale of goods. So just to give a little bit of a background on that trader's license, if a business owner has a storefront where they are selling their goods, they are required to have the actual trader's license. The trader's license would also obtain a chain store if they have more than one location. And that means that it's not more than one location throughout the state. I'm sorry, throughout the county, it is throughout the state. So if they have one here in Harford County and one in Cecil County, they are required to add a chain store to that. If I am an individual that wants to sell goods, however, I don't have a storefront, but I want to go to a flea market or one of our markets that we do here in Harford County. As long as I do not do more than 3, I am able to obtain an exhibitor's license rather than the trader's license. But once you go over that 3 mark, then you must have the trader's. Some of the law changes that came into play with the trader's license is that a business that sells food but does not meet the definition of a restaurant will obtain a trader's license. So for example, Wawa, they prepare food, but they really don't meet the definition of a restaurant. So they will not have a restaurant license, they will have a trader's license. Also, one of the big changes was the mobile places of business in the past, our food trucks. They have only been required to obtain a peddler's license. In addition to the trucks this year, and the trucks obtain a yellow metal tag that needs to be affixed to their truck. Not only that, now the foot peddlers, the people that are walking about the county, they also are required to have that metal tag. They do not need to wear it around their neck. They just need to have it on their person, unlike the trucks. that does need to be affixed.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, however, if the big change for those food trucks is that if they are going from one location to another about the county, which most of them do, they will need to have a peddler's license along with the trader's license, which is new this year. However, if the food truck parks in one location, and I honestly cannot think of any examples that I'm aware of that stay in one place, but if they do, they are not required to receive the peddlers. They only are required to obtain the trader's license. One thing that hasn't changed that I did not make a notation here is that our food trucks are required to go through the health department and obtain a health department certificate. And so when I said that I work with our partners and the county, I actually should have added health department on there. And so I will go ahead and add that on. However, we do require, and the health department does require us to, before issuing a business license, to have the certificate that they have viewed the truck and it meets all of their guidelines. And that is going to be whether the food truck is mobile or not mobile, we will still require that health department certificate.
Right. I think that brings us into probably the questions, because I think that's our last license that was impacted by the Senate bill.
Yes.
So I guess we can go ahead and click to the
last one.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. I see a couple of questions in chat. I'm just going to hold them all to the end and we'll circle back. Thanks everybody for dropping those questions in. We will circle back to them. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Andrew. I'll give you guys a second to switch presentations there.
You want to end?
Just to stop share.
And then we will circle back.
Hi, good morning, everybody. How are you today? I hope everybody is well. My name is Andrew Porter. I work with Assured Partners of Maryland, and we are one of the top 10 largest brokers across the nation in terms of insurance and surety bonding. So we handle everything from business insurance for property and casualty, as well as employee benefits. We do risk mitigation, workers' comp, and then of course, suretyship. And that's what I'm here to talk to you today about. So yeah, this is my company here, Assured Partners. Now they are a large brokerage that has been buying up agencies across the nation for a long time. Our agency was bought about 5 years ago, but we've been serving the Maryland, Delaware, and Virginia area for about 20 years. You may have seen our previous name, Centennial Surety Associates. So just a brief overview of what we're going to be talking today, just some foundations so we can get all on the same page about bonding in case you guys face them as you are dealing in the world of your business licenses. So I'm going to be covering, what is quickly a surety bond and who needs them. I'm going to give you some examples of the Harford County ones that I know of and the Maryland business licenses that require these surety bonds. We're going to do a brief look at some bond language to help you guys just kind of understand what you're reading when you have to get these bond forms filled out. I'm going to touch on a couple of recent law changes affecting surety, and then we'll just take a quick look at what's coming down the pipeline. And then, of course, if there are any questions at the end for myself, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Okay, so a lot of people are familiar with the phrase, my word is my bond. Let me get this out of the way here. So in the simplest form, a surety bond is a guarantee. There are many types of surety bonds utilized in the public and private business worlds to establish a basis for guarantees, and they prescribe the recourse if these guarantees are not fulfilled. Most often, surety bond professionals categorize these into two categories: contract surety bonds and commercial surety bonds. So contract bonds are mostly in the construction industry. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on those today, but there's bid bonds, performance and payment bonds, maintenance and warranty bonds, supply bonds, all dealing with construction projects and guaranteeing those contracts that come along with those various jobs. And then there are commercial bonds, license and permit bonds, public official bonds, fidelity bonds, judicial bonds. Most people are familiar with bail bonds. But like I said, in their simplest form, they are a guarantee. They are a sheet of paper that sits affixed to a contract or a license or some other obligation that guarantees the fulfillment. So in the instance that we're specifically going to look at today with license and permit bonds, they guarantee operation within the law. So required by many municipalities or other public entities, these bonds obligate the principal to guarantee compliance with the applicable laws and regulations that govern the license or permit being used. The bond acts as a means of protection for the consumers who are going to then be employing the services of the principal, which is the bondholder. So if you are applying for a business license for Harford County or the state of Maryland, and that requires a surety bond, the actual bond is there in place to protect the consumers who are going to then be availing themselves of your establishment or your services. People like to talk chiefly about the three parties. You'll hear that a lot when you're in the world of surety bonds. The three parties involved, and they have the term obligee, principal, and surety. Your obligee is actually the person who's asking, or the entity that is asking you to go get the bond. You, as the business owner, are the principal, and then the surety is the company that we place you with as your agent to obtain the bonds. So, right. Obligee says, go get the bond. The principal is the one who needs the bond, and the surety is the provider of the bond. And what that bond does is it kind of joins the obligee and the principal for that unique contract or obligation to make sure that the principal fulfills that obligation completely for the obligee. The obligation will end when the contract is fulfilled, or for license bonds, the obligation exists for as long as the principal maintains the given license. Therefore, as Melissa had pointed out, these license bonds are usually renewable, just like the license gets renewed every year. So here's a couple examples of what we have or what you may face, be it in Harford County or all over the state of Maryland. There's a solid waste hauler bond in Harford County. There's an auctioneer. If you are an auctioneer in Harford County, you'll need to get a bond. There's a motor vehicle and boat dealer bonds that we see a lot if you're opening up a dealership. There's the medical marijuana grower bonds, the credit service businesses. Your home improvement contractor, we'll be talking about a little bit in just a minute here. If you are a notary, you're going to need to post a bond. If you're a freight broker, there's bonds there. Health club owners, if you brew beer, if you open up a check cashing store, if you're a foreclosure consultant, there's the businesses that offer hunting or fishing licenses. If they issue those, they need a bond to make sure that they're, just like every bond, making sure they're following the letter of the law before they issue this license. Pawnbrokers need these bonds. Tow truck operators need bonds. Water well driller. Just a few examples here. So I'm just going to jump into what the actual bond is. So we talk about these surety bonds, and it's kind of abstractly about a guarantee, but in the real world, physically, all they are is a document, a sheet of paper, and they follow the obligation. So pay close attention when you look at these bond forms. You'll take a look at them, usually the obligee that is asking you to go get this bond will provide you with the form. Those can also be found in many places online. If they haven't provided to you, it's usually a very public place to download it. But you want to pay close attention to the form language and look for key phrases such as may be canceled at any time by the surety. Those instances are important to look at because they can be canceled just for a non-payment of the premium, or if the surety no longer wishes to offer this line of business anymore, and then you'll have to go find a new surety to take over this bond for you when it renews. So you want to be very aware of that if that's a potential issue. Most of the time you'll see the language shall remain in full force and effect until, and that is just saying that this bond will be continuous year after year, usually until the person the principal who is obtaining the bond says, hey, I don't need this license anymore. So I'm going to not renew the license, and therefore the bond will not renew that next year either. And that is also something that you'll see with the language shall be continuous unless the principal or surety shall give notice. So an example of a bond form here, I've got your Maryland Home Improvement Commission bond. So this is the actual form, the document. Many of the bond forms kind of take a similar shape where they're looking for a bond number that you'll identify who the principal is, who the surety is, and then it will have a date when it is sealed. It'll always have, if you see here, an amount. In this case, for the MHIC, this bond amount is $30,000. That is not the price of the bond. That is what the bond amount can cover up to for any claims against the bond. I don't want to get too deep into what, the whole claims process, but just as you are familiar with your car insurance or your homeowner's insurance, if the worst arises and you need to make a claim against your insurance, there is a limit to which that claim can pay out. That $30,000 here on the bond is also a limit for the amount that a claim can pay out against this specific bond. You are usually charged to, as the bondholder, a premium, which is a percentage of that limit. In most cases, it's 1% to 2%. So for a $30,000 bond, you're looking about $300 to $600 annually for that bond. So one update from 2002, they passed laws in Maryland that increased this amount, what they call the penal sum, or the max payout on this bond, from $20,000 to $30,000. Everybody who has this bond is going to see an increase in their premium when they go to renew this bond, simply because the penal sum amount has now increased. So where they were paying $400, now they'll be closer to $600 every year. Another law that was passed, and this was at the end of 2021, was the Maryland Credit Services and Business Licensee Act, and that established a bond for credit service businesses that help people improve their credit. They now have to carry a bond to make sure that they are operating within the regulations of the law. The bond amount for this example here is $50,000, and this one renews annually. The Maryland Home Improvement Contract renews every 2 years. So that's another thing to pay attention to for your business license requirements, if your surety bond is renewing every year, or if it's on an every other year type of situation. Okay, so quickly here, what's coming tomorrow? So right now the General Assembly is actually meeting, and they introduced a bill in January that's going into committee for the Financial Institutions Mortgage Loans Originators Bond for independent contractors. So this may be a new bond that will be required for this type of business license if you are a mortgage loan originator. And the bill will require those folks to be covered by a surety bond, and a licensee who is otherwise affiliated with an insurance producer must either have a bond satisfying the requirement or be covered by a blanket surety bond, which is a shorthand for saying that a company can have a blanket bond that covers all of their independent contractors that they work with. And then I think the big highlight for many industries that's coming down in the pipeline is the IIJA, the Infrastructure and Investment in Jobs Act. This is the bill that was signed into law by this recent administration in November 15, 2021. Right, there's $1.2 trillion for transportation infrastructure spending that is coming to the states and local municipalities. If Harford County is participating in any of those opportunities to get funding from the federal government with this, all of those contracts that they issue will require surety bonds. Anything that is above $100,000 or larger. That I didn't want to go into today with too much detail, but there's a law called the Miller Act, and that's every state has a very similar law that says that if you're doing work for the government in an amount of 100,000 or more, you will be required to post a performance and or payment bond. So just be very aware that there's a ton of money out there, and there's really a great opportunity if you can get your hands on some of these government contracts. Do not be afraid if you start to see the requirement for surety bonds. We can absolutely help you, whether it be my agency or another agency. We just want to emphasize that surety bonds are just a very regular part of doing business, and they're not too intimidating. They're not too difficult to obtain. There's some pre-qualification, but if you've gone through, insurance process before, it's very similar. And then just last but not least, a little information here. If you want to reach out, as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, my agency handles not only surety bonds, but we also do business insurance from top to bottom, including your property and casual, workers' comp, employee benefits, etc. My number is there at the bottom, email address. I'm available anytime. I never leave my cell phone. So any help you guys need, that's what I'm here for.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it. And if anybody does have any questions, or you want to connect with Andrew, or the courts as well, please let me know. Please feel free to shoot me an email. I'm happy to make some introductions after this call. So with that, I want to get to some of these questions here that are coming through in the chat. So if our speakers want to go ahead and unmute, I'm just going to start reading them off, and feel free to jump in and share information. So, all right, starting off with a question here from Tony. Can you speak a little bit to what it means to have a pending business license, and why wouldn't all of those be issued? Maybe what are some factors that you guys see often as why a business license would not be issued?
Okay, so all of our business licenses start out in a pending status here at our level. Right now, as we on President's Day weekend is when the business licenses are dumped in for the current year, are dumped into our system. And at that point in time, it's all of the municipalities as well as the comptroller that are going through all of the licenses throughout the county and the state. And they are marking those business licenses as being paid or approved. Ours stay in a pending status until we issue. This year, we will be doing something a little bit different because we do have the online payment. A business owner is unable to go in and actually make that payment online until we have marked the business license approved in our database. So we are going to be looking at all of the business licenses that have met the criteria through all the different agencies, that we're going to mark them. We're going to automatically mark them clerk approved, so that if they have an account, and that is something that is important to say, is that in order to make a payment online, the business owner must create an account through the portal. And that is the link on the very first page of this presentation, in order to actually go in and make that payment.
Okay, great, thank you. In addition to that, the links that you did share in the PowerPoint, would you mind sharing those with the group as well? Maybe after this call, I can send them out to everybody so that they can access those.
Sure.
And get those out. All right. All right, moving on. So next question. If I opened my business in January of 23 and received a license in February, do I need to renew that license before the May 31st deadline?
Yes. So a business opened in January of 23 would have obtained a 2022 business license because that is within our business license timeline. And so the business owner that created an application and business license in January of 22 will receive a paper renewal from us when we mail out in April.
Now, Melissa, just real quick though, with that though, when they bought their license in 22, it would be a prorated
Correct.
license. So they're not paying the full amount as if they got it May 1st.
That is correct.
Okay, so that's just kind of keep that in mind. If you come in to get a business license within the cycle of the year, you're going to pay a prorated amount. not necessarily a full
The full
amount.
amount.
Interesting. Good to know. Thank you.
You know,
Alright.
Natalie, I should add that when people come in and want to start a business and they want to incorporate or be an LLC, and they come in like in November, I always tell them, can you wait till January 2nd? Because if you form it this year, you're gonna have to file your first property tax return in April. Instead, if you wait till January 2nd, you don't have to file your first one until the following
The
year,
following year.
which makes a big difference.
Interesting. See, good to know. All right, let's see here. Next question. So it says, I have a Harper County trader's license. If I transact direct sales in another state, example in Virginia, how do I take into account the tax differences as they vary by state?
That is something that I am not able to speak to. That would be something that they would have to check with their tax accountant on.
Okay, good. We'll follow up on that one.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Next question. I sell items such as books at venues like flea markets and other events. Do I need to obtain a peddler's license as well as a trader's license?
So they are, no, that is just the trader's license. If they are walking throughout neighborhoods, then yes, but I would say going to flea markets, no.
All right. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to jump in, unmute, drop them in the chat. And I believe it was already mentioned so of course, if anybody has questions later, feel free to reach out and we'll connect you with the appropriate people. But it sounds like I'll share the information again in the slides, but if you did have questions, they can stop by the office, right? Is that correct, Melissa?
Yes, and we also have an email address, customer.inquiries.hc.ll@mdtorts.gov. And most certainly, if they're unable to stop by or call us, then they can always email us.
Awesome.
Natalie, I have one more question.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I understood clearly something that they covered. If you sell goods, like the example that was just given at flea markets or book events, and you don't have a brick and mortar, if you do less than 3 events per year, you only need the exhibitor's license. Is that correct?
That is correct.
More than 3, you need the trader's license.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
All right. Couple more minutes. Any last questions? All right. Well, great. We will wrap it up. Thank you so much to everybody, to both of our presenters. Thank you very much, as well as everybody who participated. Stay tuned. I'll be sharing all of the information presented today via email. So check your email in the next couple of days. And it will get all of that out to you. And like I said, if anybody has any follow-up questions or you'd like to be connected to our speakers, please feel free to reach out. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.